Okay guys, we're back. Our drawer. Now, all I did is remove the clamps. Now, I'm gonna tell you something. This pie safe was sitting in the back of my shop. It's not heated back there very much. And we've had a lot of rain. And I don't know if you remember, but we had the drawer fitting pretty nice. Well, I brought it out this morning and I'm underneath here banging, trying to get the drawer out because it was really tight. Just that little bit of moisture, you know, it swelled. So what I did was I just simply took a hand plane. If you look over here, there's a little bit of hand plane shavings. All I did was hand plane that side here a little bit, just enough so that it's running good. So don't get them too tight. Now, with the front glued on, and if you recall, we made it a little proud, meaning a little bit bigger. We made it fit the opening. So now we want to trim it down and get it just right. So let me get the router bit set and we'll do that real quick. All right, if you remember when we were truing up these dovetails, we used this spiral cut bit. We're just going to do it again. Let me make sure. Yeah, I'm okay. All right, I got a little bump right here. I got a hand plane off, and that's simply because the bearing's hitting right here, because this is a longer bit than what I had the other day, because we've been making some other stuff. So let me take a hand plane and clean this off, and let's check our fit. Now, there you go. Let me grab a sander and sand that up a little bit so you get see the whole thing. Okay. All right, it's kind of hard to tell that that's not a half blind dovetail. Really works nice. Now, remember we hand planed a little bit off in here, kind of tapered these a little bit. Now I'm going to show you why I did that. Once we get through checking her fit, let me sand this edge and we'll get to the case. We're going to do a little cheat here. We're going to lay a scribe line down through here, you know, like the old hand-cut dovetails would be. And this line is so tight and cut, It's going to be really hard for you to see on camera, but you just cannot tell that's not hand cut. Really does a nice job. Okay, let's check the fit. All right, it's pretty nice. I'm a little tight up here at the top, but I got good line. I can fix that pretty easy with a hand plane. Yeah, I can feel them a little bit proud there. Let me tune that in a little bit. A little bit more. I got my plane set just a little heavy. That's all right, I can live with that. Now, the problem with any flush mount drawer, doesn't matter, is if, you know, particularly like in this case where you got to loosen it up a little bit, you're going to get a little bit of movement. And then you got to stop the drawer. You want to stop it nice and flush. That's why we tapered it. Now I'm going to show you. Watch. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little piece of masking tape and I'm going to put it in here just, you'll see why just in a moment. Because what we're going to do, we're going to take a little piece of wood, and you can see this. It's what, 1.25 inches long, 3/4, 7/8 wide, really doesn't matter. And we're going to glue that in the corner of the drawer just like this. Now this acts as a guide on the interior of the drawer right here. Also acts as a stop. Now be careful, and then you notice this, it's rounded on the end, just sanded it round a little bit, and that's so when the drawer goes in, this kind of guides it and makes it easy. So I'm going to put some tape on here, and then we'll put it in and we'll glue it. I got to show it to you this way because you're not going to be able to see it inside the case. And we'll just set it in there and glue it in place. The other caution is, this is only about, I don't know, not even 3/16, because I don't want it to interfere with when I put my drawer bottom in. But don't worry, if it does a little bit, you can always take a file and file it down, or rasp. Okay, let me get some glue and we'll put those in place. All right, got the drawer in place. I got my front flush. Now let's assume for a moment that this front isn't perfectly flush. And in actuality, we got a little bit of an edge here. But once we lock it in place and get our stops in, we'll be able to sand this or scrape it, hand plane it, whatever we need to do. But we can then flush this front up really nice. So all I'm going to do is put a little glue. And I'm going to reach up under. Now this is another advantage to not having that drawer bottom in. Is I'm going to reach up under and I'm going to set it right in that corner. I'm setting it in the corner, tight against the front of the drawer and to the edge of the drawer. Now why did we hand plane the back? Let's say when we pull this drawer out, it doesn't bind. You know, we don't want to be trying to run this drawer between two actual guides. So by hand planing that edge, That gives us some relief. The other thing that these little tabs do really nice is that, again, if you've got a flush drawer, you know, the critical part of them is when they land, meaning they go shut. This is going to keep all your gaps just right, but it's not going to interfere with you in your normal run. Now I'm just pressing these down really tight. Now I'll tell you what, once they're set, I'll usually ease the drawer out and pop a little nail in it just to be sure that futuristic they don't ever come loose. Now you can reach under here and get a clamp, but I really don't think it's necessary. Okay, drawers in place, tabs are drying. Now, I told you one of the things we want to do is we want to look at some different ways of making dovetails. The jig I'm about to show you now is called a keyhole jig, K-E-H-O-E. I think the website is dovetailspline.com. So www.dovetailspline.com. Or you can just Google keyhole, again, K-E-H-O-E. Now this is a pretty slick little jig, and I want you to see it. I've done a video on it. It's out here on YouTube, 2 or 3, or instruction or whatever, and I really liked it. So what I'm going to do is I want to move this down, and we're going to get another camera angle and go over here, and we're going to take a look at the keyhole. Okay. Now before I do the actual keyhole, I want to show you something. And a lot of guys out here are picking it up, and but I kind of got beat up a little bit about it and telling me it wouldn't work and it was kind of dumb and all that. And, okay, never mind, no problem with me. One of the things with a keyhole is while you can do a simple butt joint, because you'll see it all, a spline goes through and it locks everything. My favorite way is with a mitered corner. So you could take this drawer and just miter everything, glue it up, then come back and do the splines, which we're going to see that in a minute. And again, if you use that applied front, guys, it would be really hard to tell it's not, you know, a half blind. And I hope you've seen the advantage of being able to just do the applied front. It just makes a lot of sense. But how to glue a miter. I see guys fight and just have all kind of nightmares, and there's all kind of jigs, yada yada. I'll show you how to do it. See my miter? I lay it end to end. I feel sure you've seen this. Put your good piece of tape across it. Good wide heavy piece of tape. Flip it over and brush glue inside of here. And simply fold it shut. And what you're doing is you're stretching, I want you to, can you see this? Tight as a drum. Does it work? Let's find out. I glued this yesterday because I knew I was going to show you this. And you're seeing it untaped. Now I was quick doing it, so I got a little bit there, but that's my doings. It does perfect. It does a great job on a miter. As a matter of fact, if the camera girl will indulge me a minute, I want to show you a corner cabinet. And those of you who've ever built a corner cabinet, you know, turning that corner with that 22.5-degree miter, it's a little tricky. I'm going to show you one we did, and the entire length of this thing was done using tape, just like we showed you. Let's go up to another room real quick and just get a shot of it, just so you see it. Okay, this whole corner right here, this entire corner all the way down was done by cutting, you know, both pieces on a 22.5, taping them, putting the glue in the back and simply folding it. You know, now I had to put a little tape around the back to make sure I kept the inside tight. Really, really does a nice job. and it's easy. You know, the only thing I'm gonna caution you on is don't use really flimsy or cheap tape. Something like the heavy blue tape or even duct tape works really good. So give it a shot, try it. Okay, let's get back to the keyhole. Okay, now before we get too far, I went over here and sanded this little miter joint a little bit. And while we're here, I'm gonna explain something. A lot of times when you do a miter joint and you pull it tight, you look at it, and that's what was happening here, and it kind of looks like you got a gap, and you're going to freak out a little bit. But here's actually what happens. Remember, most of your glues are water-based, and that little teeny sharp edge on here, right here, the very, very little tip of it, that's very thin. A lot of times you'll see what happens is that very edge. You've seen water or water-based glue or something on a veneer and it just kind of curls and goes crazy or something. What it'll do, that little outer edge will try to curl back just a little bit on you. And sometimes it gives you an illusion you got a gap, but the minute you hit it with a piece of sandpaper, it's gone. Or a scraper, either one. But anyway, this is just thought I'd throw that in there. Now here's the way the keyhole works. It's basically a fixed pin jig, something similar to ours, but it works on an entirely different principle. Now, just like ours or the fixed pin, we can move and do half pins or whatever we want. But just to show you this, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a symmetrical cut and show you. Now, one of the things you want to do with a keyhole, you want to use about a 1/2 inch cut length dovetail bit, but you can use any degree bit that you want. Doesn't matter, and you'll see why. Now the other thing you're going to notice with a keyhole, if you're looking, the front of the slot is wider than the back. It's a 1 degree taper, and so when we cut the splines to go in here, that taper just makes it lock. And because it's on a taper, getting it fitted is just almost a no-brainer. Okay, so let me make the cut real quick. Let me get some ear protection. All right, let's cut this. The one thing I want to mention is when you're cutting on the keyhole, I usually come in on the right and exit on the left. That's what actually cuts that taper. I'm pretty sure I'm okay on this clamp, but I'll move it just to make sure I don't hit it with my router bit. That would not make my day. Now, like I said, I didn't cut a 1/2 pin, but I could. But now you see what we've got. We've got the dovetail this way and this way. Now we're going to go to a table saw. All right. This is a little sled that comes with your keyhole that mounts to your miter slide. Now this little slide right here, and they've got a new one that they've got, but this is the old version that I've had, and there's a sticker on here that says don't cut this off. They were serious about it, but you know, anyway. Then you get a little indexer. What is this? It's a magnet so that you can set up for where you need to cut your shim or your spline. Now let me explain something to you. My dovetail bit is 9.5 degrees. So I've got it angled out to 9.5 degrees. I'm not sure which one comes with the keyhole. It might be a 14 degree or whatever. But again, it doesn't matter. You can use any degree dovetail bit you want. You simply set your saw blade to whatever degree the bit is. Now, before I get chastised, I'm watching very carefully here. The reason you don't want to cut your sled off is because when your little spline falls down, it lays on the edge of the jig. Now, if you put it in, you see this little gap right there? That tells you you're going wrong. This thing's holds like crazy. That's a mallet, just a funny looking one. But let me show you. If you look very, very, very carefully, you can see the taper. Okay? That's part of what locks it. Now, obviously, you would be adding some glue. But once you got this set, and it don't take but a little bit, and you're fitting, knock them out. I got that one a little fat. Go figure. But that's okay, because guess what? That's what I'm telling you. That taper, you know, you're going to lock in no matter what you do. You know. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I didn't glue these, but you would. I'm going to cut these off. I'm going to trim them on a bandsaw kind of close, and I'm going to sand them. We'll take a look. All right, the keyhole. Now, one thing you're going to notice here, see how deep this is? And that's because, and that's a 1/2 inch cut length. And that's because we're going on the angle. But you could, you know, if you wanted a little shorter dovetail, you could go with the 3/8 cut length or whatever. Now, if you can envision that with an applied front and you got a good looking drawer. Not an issue. And Lord knows it's strong. Doing a box, and you notice here, just so you could see, I used a walnut splines in this red oak. You know, doing keeping chests and keeping boxes or any kind of box or whatever, picture frames, you name it. That's a neat little way to do it. That's the keyhole. Now, I can't go through all the jigs, and everybody out there knows, you know, you got the Lee jigs, you've got the Porter Cable Omni jigs. You know, there's just so many. And those are, again, they're using an adjustable finger. But now we're going to look a little bit at hand cutting them and how to cheat on hand cutting. Cheat. I like cheating. I like fast. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, slight change of plans. Camera girl tells me I've got 5 minutes in this one. And we're not going to get hand cut dovetails and some little tricks in 5 minutes. So we're just going to finish up the drawer, close this one out, then we'll go right, the next one we'll have that in. Now, one of the things I did, I don't know if you can notice, I was still a little tight on that top. Wasn't quite even, so I took a hand plane and just took a little bit more off, got it just like I wanted it. Now, and you know, you're literally watching this almost real time because these blocks have not set very long. So all I'm gonna do is just take a pin nailer or a little finishing nail, make sure they're locked in good. All right. Now, get rid of my tape. Got it there, okay. That's the way it works. Creates the stop, and we're done. Now, while we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and get the knobs on this, but before I do, I wanna make sure I'm right. All right. Looks good to me. Our centers are still good. Now again, this is the knob we're using, and I got these from Horton Brass. Now what I did, when you buy these knobs, or a lot of them, it's going to come with a very long tenon on it. And one of the reasons is, one of the other things we're going to be doing is we've got one, and this is going to go on the doors. And what we'll do is we'll secure one door, then you shut the other door, and this turns on the back of it, and it closes the other door. Very typical of Palisades, unless they use what we will affectionately refer to as a twist latch, which means they would secure one door, and on this door they would have a little twist knob that actually comes over the other one. We're pretty rural around here and kind of out in the country. We call them outhouse latches because you saw them on a lot of the old outhouses. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember. Okay. So what I did is I just cut it off to about a 5/8 tenon. Just nipped it off with a handsaw. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brad point and I set it on the bit. Just took a little piece of blue tape and marked my depth. Simple as that. Now I'll give you a hint. Buy a decent brad point and drill something before you do this to make sure your knobs fit, because in this case this is 3/8. Sometimes 3/8 isn't exactly 3/8. All right. Now we're not going to glue these in until we get it sanded and finished, but they fit good enough. We got to drill it. Okay, we're going to move this, and in our next one, we're going to work on this dovetail some more.